Before we get into today's episode, I just want to remind everyone, SBA Today is now available on podcast streaming services. Catch up on all the latest news in the world of SBA with our beloved co-hosts Tanya Mazurik and Paul Long. I love the show because I always learn a valuable lesson listening to their real-life stories, and the way they deliver it and tie it back to what we do makes the show really entertaining and really fun to watch. Critics are calling it Regis and Kelly meets SBA Connect. Check it out today, and don't forget to subscribe to SBA Today. You've seen the purple shoes. Now it's finally time to answer the age-old question. What is Shatterbox? And we're not going to be hearing it just from Dustin, one of the co-founders and CEO, but from an actual learner in the program named Cam, as well as a bank participant, Chris Kwiatkowski, head of SBA over at Dogwood State Bank. But first, a little history lesson. In recent years, the SBA job market has been tighter than ever, making it harder and harder to build and maintain a sustainable SBA loan program without working people to the bone. But even before that, for years, we would go to conference after conference, look around at all the white hair and say, man, we need some fresh blood in our industry. And then we'd all go home and do nothing about it. Well, the folks at Shatterbox decided to step up to the plate, and they're on a mission to solve the talent gap in SBA lending by providing a learning curriculum for new recruits. But this isn't your grandfather's online SBA class. They put some money into it, including a lot of folks like myself in the industry who became investors because they believed in what they were doing so much. And Shatterbox built the type of platform that the Fortune 100 companies use to train their people. Now I'm going to pause here because I don't want to spoil the episode. Let's hear from Dustin himself on how it's been starting a brand new company with 4 co-founders. That's a bit of a disruptor in our world. And let's hear from Chris why his bank decided to be their first client, and why Cam, a 23-year-old young whippersnapper, decided to leave his career and jump into the world of SBA lending. There are some sound issues with this one. Unfortunately, technology doesn't always work as planned, but we made do and it turned out pretty good. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. If you're an SBA BDO, you're probably getting multiple calls every week from recruiters telling you about an amazing opportunity at an incredible shop with an open credit box and a strong comp plan. You got to at least hear them out, right? The truth is, most good BDOs can't move because they'd be leaving too much on the table for it to make sense. But alas, all good things must come to an end. When that time comes, how do you decide that critical next step? You need to talk to an industry insider who knows the market inside and out, an advisor that can cut through all the BS and tell you what it's really like to be a BDO at this bank or at that bank. Baker Lewis has 30 years experience, not just in recruiting, but in every aspect of SBA lending. They know the business and they are committed to helping people make the right move, even if that means they don't get a placement fee. If the time has come for you to consider a move, I'd encourage you to partner with an advocate like Baker Lewis, who will help you evaluate the market the way they would if they were making the move. An agent who can help you get the deal you didn't think was possible. Let me tell you folks, anything is possible. Call Baker Lewis. Shatterbox Panel, take 1. Thank you all for being here, by the way. So I'm going to just set this up. So we have Dustin Baker back on the podcast, so everyone knows who you are. You're back, Chris, on the podcast, so everyone knows who you are. You're new here, so who are you?
I'm Cam Nayebi. It's my first year in SBA. I'm one of the first graduating class in Shatterbox, and I'm with Harvest Small Business Finance.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for being here. And so you're in the Shatterbox program. You're a bank, right? You run an SBA division at Dogwood. You guys got someone from the program. Was it someone you sourced that you put in the program? Or?
Yeah, we had the person already and put them in the program.
Okay, so we're going to get your point of view from being a bank in the program. You're new to SBA through the program.
Yep.
You're in it right now, so we're going to get your point of view, and then the brains behind the operation, I guess.
Something behind the operation. Maybe the wrong body part. Yeah, the sweat. Yeah.
So it's been going on. Didn't you pretty much
launch it into the SBA world like at a conference? Was it this conference last year, or was it?
Yeah, so we announced the idea of the platform in October of 22 at the Nayebi conference, but we hadn't even really started building anything. It was just the announcement, hey, we're going to do a new kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then
They're great. Now I have all this pressure to actually do it.
Yeah, exactly. And then we forced ourselves into a corner where we had to build a thing. And then last year at the, what do we call it? SESBLC?
We're still,
conference?
exactly.
In Amelia Island. We were starting to bring people in for the beta, which we did over the summer. So last year was really our coming out party at this conference last year.
And now people are in it now, and it's been a few months. How's it been going?
I mean, I'm pleased with where we are. It's never quite as, far down the road as I want it to be, but I think that's probably typical building anything. The build is taking longer, it's cost more money because you get to a place and you want to do things a certain way and you realize, ooh, we're going to have to do a little more work to do that. So we launched it probably 4 or 5 months after we expected to launch it, which is fine. But I think our learners are really doing well on the platform. We're getting great feedback from banks in terms of how much faster people are productive in their jobs than they would have been without it. And we're onboarding. We onboarded 3 new banks in the last week and a half to the platform. So people are starting to understand what we're doing. And so we're pleased with where we are.
If you don't know what Shatterbox is, why don't we just go ahead and give a high-level explanation?
So Shatterbox is really our attempt to solve the problem that really everybody in our industry agrees exists, and that is there's not enough people with this skill set, and many people that have the skill set are kind of moving rapidly toward retirement. And so we've got a talent gap issue that has to be solved with new blood, new people, ideally in their 20s that can take the industry forward for a lot of years. And there really wasn't a good tool to train those people that have no SBA experience from the beginning. There's good training tools in the industry. Once you've got some experience,
right? It's like impossible. How do you learn from scratch, right? It's like you're in an office with some. Well, we're not in offices anymore.
Yeah,
Good point.
Well, and the way it's happened in our industry, and Chris can probably speak to this, right, for a long time, is you just land in a job and then you find somebody, you sit at their feet, and it takes 3, 4, 5 years before you're proficient. It's really, it's inefficient, and it doesn't work to hire the 1,000 new people we needed yesterday. And
It's very hit or miss.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I started my career with the SBA out of college just by happenstance. It wasn't what I was aiming for. It just happened to hire me. So when I got into being a BDO, there was no training. And, my sales manager was, this was AT&T Capital, which became CIT later on. My sales manager was the credit manager. They decided to put him in the sales manager role. And he knew nothing. I mean, but I went down to visit with somebody who I'm still friends with and work with, Matt Putnam. And he took me around and I learned from him. And I'm like, I can do this. And I just took it to the next level in my mind, But I was an anomaly because I came in at a class with AT&T Capital of 5 other people, and they were all gone within a year, the rest of them. Yeah. And these were people, I know SBA. I've done this before. And I was like, man, this guy's going to light it up. And they're gone.
Yeah.
So.
Burnout rate is really high.
Doesn't Matt work for you now?
He does. Not directly for me. Matt works with me, yes.
I got you there.
Yeah.
So going back to 22, when you're announcing this idea, so 21, 22, think about that job market for you as you're growing a rapidly expanding SBA division. Was it really was the labor market tight? Were you thinking internally about how do we hire people?
I've been doing this 30 odd years now, and I'm tired of hiring retreads, I call them. People who have SBA on their resume, and they come in and you have to unteach them what they think they know. It's not right for our bank. It may be SBA somewhere else. Like I said, I worked for the SBA. Most SBA employees couldn't survive being a producer. That's just not what they are, So it's a different skill set. And I was tired of hiring people who I know this, I can do that, and inevitably they couldn't. So I'd rather teach somebody from scratch rather than have to unteach bad habits and then rebuild them again. Mm-hmm. So that's what intrigued me about it. Plus the fact that we are getting old. I've been doing this 30 odd years, so we need some new blood. And there's no lender that I know of has a training program anymore.
Right.
Nobody puts the resources into it. Right away, it's now, and this is the third division I've built. And right away, it's make money from the start. I mean, there is no downtime.
Really?
There is no build-up time. You need to be profitable from day one. Well, how am I supposed to do that if I don't have people know what they're doing? I was blessed. I had a team that followed me, and I knew some proven producer to work with me before, so we could hit the ground running. But for a bank that wants to come in and start from scratch, it's very difficult.
It's like the system itself is kind of like broken in a way, because the bank's expectation is that you're going to make money right out the gate. But if we are more like artists here at the Art of SBA. And, but as SBA lenders, we're like, if we really want to design and innovate and do these things, you're going to need to make investments that are more long-term in nature. And then it's just that kind of, tension there that drives people to kind of take that sort of like that quicker route, it sounds like, and just say, hey, I'm just going to hire you, plug and play and go, right?
Well, the expectation in a lot of banks that are trying to get into this business is they're going to make money and then they'll spend money. And that's just not how it works. If you want to be successful, you've got to spend money to make money.
For revenue, you can't have too much expense in front of revenue.
And so it's a really delicate balance. But the banks that come in ready to invest on the front end in smart ways are banks that are going to build something, a foundation that's going to allow them to scale more effectively, right? If you're trying to get $1 million in premium income before you hire a credit officer, you're going to have $1 million in premium income, and you're going to have loans that you shouldn't have put on your books, right? And so
repairs and
but there's got to be a discipline to how you build from a financial perspective. And it's just like, I don't expect in any other part of my life to make money without investing something, right? And we didn't do that with Shatterbox. We've spent $1.2 million to build the platform, right? And so, and I know what I'm building, and so I believe in it. So I've liquidated my set by IRA to limp along the way, or we're raising capital to make this thing work. You do the things that you've got to do to build what you've got a vision to build. And I think, unfortunately, some SBA lenders understand that, banks understand that. A lot of them, there's not an easy path to it, I guess is what I would say.
Well, I see opportunity myself, because in an old industry, and by the way, new blood, we've been saying new blood since I was here. It's like, oh, good, you're here. You're the new blood we've been, looking for.
Where's the rest of you?
12 years later, like, thanks for joining me. So, but you thought the problem was because you had a successful recruiting company with Shane Baker Lewis, and you thought this problem was so serious and that the opportunity was so big that you made this pivot in your career. Why did you feel so strongly about it?
Well, with apologies to all the headhunters who might be watching this, recruiting in this business has become a racket, right? And so we've run our business a little different. But my average recruiting fee about 6 years ago was about $23,000. My average recruiting fee this year, and we're still running that business, it's kind of transitioning our time and energy towards Shatterbox for sure, but is almost $40,000 now. It's not because we're placing different kinds of people. It's because the people we're placing are that much more expensive now. And so we do our comp study, which Chris has participated in a few times, and we have top 100 SBA lenders, HR departments. We get real comp data. And between 2019 and when we did that study in 2022, across the board on operational positions, there's about a 40% increase in what people cost. And so that's not sustainable. And then also I'm spending that much more and I'm paying a recruiter to hire them who's got a 90-day guarantee in most cases. And so I talked to a guy yesterday. He hired somebody that was a unicorn from a recruiter, paid a $40,000 fee, paid $140,000 salary. It's an underwriter, and they couldn't handle more than 2 deals at a time. They blew out in 6 months. He didn't get his guarantee on the placement. He's going to be a quarter longer to break even building his department than if he hadn't hired that person. That's a system that's broken. And why do we do it? Because there's a finite number of people in that talent pool. And so we have to make the talent pool broader and deeper. And it's got to be new people that learn the business from the ground up. And so that's what we saw. And I knew that the industry needed this. And everybody that you talk to who's ever worked with recruiters is try to figure out how to hire somebody with existing SBA experience. It's plug and play, has a horror story like what I just described. And so this is a way to drive down cost of employment. And by the time I'm paying Cam market for what Cam's doing, I know what I've got, right? He grew up in the system. He wasn't over expensive. And now by the time he's got the skill set, man, I'm glad to pay Cam what he's worth because he's making an impact. And I see that. So supply demand issues get financial stuff out of whack.
And
that's what we're trying to
mentioned something too. I mean, even though, let's say they're a producer somewhere else, but they come over to my bank and they don't fit. They don't fit our model. They don't fit our culture. And our culture is very important to us. You know, we have a pretty special little island. We don't just invite anybody on our island. You know, our team's very close knit. And so, as I mentioned before, we're probably going to use you guys on a modular basis. We have employees at the bank that like the SBA group for some reason, and we're a little nutty, you know. And they've raised their hand and said, hey, I have this background, but I don't have any SBA background. What do you think? I love this person. I know they're going to be fantastic. Do I have the time to stop and train them? Because we're driving the car down the road and trying to change the tires at the same time. So I would rather promote internally because I know this person. I know their aptitude. I know their attitude. I know their want to, you know. And so I think that's fantastic that now if we can take a modular version of yours and say, here, learn this part because it'll help us get them up to speed faster.
Guys, the reviews are in. SBA lenders are calling CorpsMart the best due diligence firm in the industry. CorpsMart is a one-stop shop for all your due diligence needs. And in SBA lending, there's a lot. Searches, filings, vehicles, you name it. I remember I brought a deal in one time that involved an airplane. My credit guy said, how are we going to go about perfecting a lien on an airplane? I said, I don't know. Call CorpsMart. They have decades of experience and they're all about service. And I could speak firsthand on that. If you're not already outsourcing your due diligence, one, you're probably wasting a lot of precious hours that you could be using to make more loans. And two, you could make a mistake, especially if you're lending across state lines because every state is different. If you're looking to streamline this year and get more efficient, this is an easy layup. They can even plug into your LOS so that you can order your searches with a click of a button, and then they're going to end up right where you need them to. To discuss your due diligence needs, go to the CorpsMart website at corp-smart.com, and you can let them know I sent you.
How did you get roped into all this?
Yeah, so I got roped into all this. I was just in the right place at the right time. Contacted Russell Bryan, one of my longtime family friends, and he happened to know Shane and Dustin. You know, he knew what they were building at Shatterbox, and I was able to kind of join at the perfect time. But definitely some things, you know, some points that Chris made that I wanted to hit on is, you know, coming into this with no SBA background, you only know what you're told. So if you're taught things the wrong way, you don't know that you're taught things the wrong way. And you don't know that you need to undo those things. So in the process, you know, you mentioned hit or miss. It's almost like a guaranteed hit because you know that what you're going to be taught, you know, and we talked about, you know, some of the fundamentals, being transparent, you know, quick knows. I didn't know that stuff coming in, you know, because there's nobody to teach me, but, you know, it's the process of trusting the people at Shatterbox. To your second point is, you know, you guys, I'm trusting you guys to put me in the right place that fits me, right? I don't fit at every bank. You know, I fit at Harvest, you know, it's been a great fit, and I wouldn't have known that because I only know what I'm told, you know. So, you know, coming to Harvest now, kind of, you know, the layout that they've placed for me and the culture that they have for the whole company fits me really well. You know, like you said, not every single person's going to fit, you know, you and your bank. So I think that whole trust portion is really important because I'm trusting you guys to understand who I am, you know, in our interview phase. And then your job is essentially to know, okay, this is where he belongs, and I think he's going to thrive here. Because you can be a great producer, go to another bank, and your numbers are down a lot. And, you know, that's the second point I wanted to hit on was just, you know, being able to trust you guys, put you in the right place at the right time to where you're going to be doing good. And then, you know, the first point, which is a lot more important, is teaching you the right things up front so that I don't have to go through that, you know, multi-year, month process of, okay, let's undo what you just did the past 3 years. Right. You know, let's undo. And then I have to go and say, oh, wow, you know, this changes my whole approach to producing. So I think those are the couple of points that you touched on that I wanted to kind of echo is, you know, that Shatterbox has helped me, you know, as somebody coming in with a finance background, but that doesn't really matter what much, you know, once you get into SBA, they don't teach you this stuff in school. So, you know, coming in with no bias has been an advantage of mine.
What is your background, by the way?
I went to the University of Georgia, studied finance, and kind of was on the investment banking, wealth management path. Realized I wanted to do something more in sales, something more, purposeful. And my parents had taken an SBA loan out, so
Really?
kind of thought how much it helped them. My dad owned several, 6 to 7 different cafes in Atlanta. I saw how much it helped him, during the 2018, 2019 period, scale his business, become successful. So, being in a job that was more purposeful, I felt that would make me more successful, rather than something that I didn't have that personal connection with. So, that was kind of the introduction that I had.
Well, that's very smart, because that's something we all, I feel like, agree with is we do feel like we're actually making a difference, and working with the small business owner, versus those, blood-sucking private equity and investment banking people.
Yeah, it's a lot different.
Not you, of course.
No, of course not. But that's the other thing, is just the support. The industry. Whether it's people at Harvest, people at competing. Non-bank lenders, bank lenders, referral sources. Everyone's really open to help because there isn't much new blood. So I think when they see people like myself interested to learn, you're more than happy to help, right? And I think that's something where I wish more younger people were open to, diving into, even though it's an industry that's not really publicized. I mean, when I figured out that I wanted to get into SBA, I went on Google, and the only source of information I had was the art of SBA lending, right? So I would go on 3-4 hours a day, watch.
And you still wanted to do it.
Oh yeah, it made me want to do it more. And just because seeing how giving everybody was, right?
True.
And it's kind of like a respect-based business, in a sense. And I really like that because I had never seen something like that before. So, Shatterbox is the only other source of information out there now. Because I know when I started, there was a 2-month period in my career where I was just going on YouTube every day, and that was the only source of info I had. Which was great because I'm seeing the strategies that top producers are using, and didn't really know how to implement that sitting at home, not having started my job yet. But now, now that I do know that, it's helped tremendously.
And what exactly are you doing at Harvest right now?
So Harvest, we're a non-bank commercial real estate only firm. I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia, but we do lending nationwide.
What's your role though?
My role is a BDA, so business development associate. So I'm on a team of 6 to 8 internally, and we have 60 to 70 people nationwide. But helping around on deals that my manager Rhonda figures that I can have a good experience on, or she thinks it's a good learning point for me to spread some numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the opportunity not only to do that and learn how she and other people on our team conduct their deals, but I also have the leeway to produce my own loans. So I can go out, network with people, take people to lunch, network with referral sources, and really go see clients in person, and kind of transfer the methodologies and kind of how Rhonda's going about her business and how other successful BDOs at our company are doing, and what Todd tells me, who was a top producer when he was selling, and apply that to my own, right? At the same time, I can help on deals that are already, going.
So how's it work, Dustin? You found him and put him in a bank, and he has what's the actual infrastructure look like?
Yeah, so it works a couple of ways, and Chris is like one example, and that is we have a good way to identify talent internally at our bank, or we've got a good recruitment pipeline, maybe from a local university or something. So we can supply the talent, but we can't stand up a whole training platform to kind of bring it all along. And so you could plug into the platform for one module or for the whole thing, right? And then you can also come, if you don't have that kind of internal ability to source candidates, you can say, okay, Shatterbox, who has decades of recruiting experience in the SBA sector, and outside of it now, source candidates for us either in a specific market or maybe a particular region, and then we kind of go through the interview process. We help that company evaluate the candidate according to their culture and kind of what their goals are. And so Cam interviewed at several places and had a couple of different opportunities. And we just kind of helped matchmake to put him in the place where he was most likely to succeed, given his goals, the bank's goals, or the non-bank's goals in this case. So we can either step in and supply the talent to go through the program. They become a W-2 employee of that company. They go into a real job. They're learning 4 or 5 hours, a week over the course of whether they're in that for a module or two or for the whole year program. And so, yeah, that I don't know if that
So what resources is Shatterbox giving you to actually do the learning? Like,
Yeah, that was my next point, was going to kind of talk about the modules, right? So how each module is broken up. And it's been funny because right where I'm getting in the point of my career where I need to really, be able to pre-screen these deals that I'm sourcing myself and be able to say, okay, I don't want to waste the credit team's time. I'm on the credit module and I'm on the underwriting module, which is the second 8-week kind of interval. First 8 weeks was 7A. This past 8 weeks, which I'm finishing up this week, is going to be underwriting and credit. So kind of as you develop and as you get more hands-on experience, you're doing these online modules that teach you about the program parameters, the history, how you can use it on a day-to-day, what's changing, how to stay up to date, how to be better than average, and focus on the details. And that's now helped me because I think the timing of the modules is pretty important too, right? I probably, would not have used the credit underwriting as much if it was my first week. But now that I'm getting a little bit, in a rhythm and actually having to pre-screen these deals, it's come in handy really well. So I would say that it complements your business. It complements someone like me who, there's certain areas of the business that, I'm going to need to know. And there's certain areas that I know I learn on the go. So the 7A program, when I got to Harvest, it was something that, I saw a couple of deals that my team members were doing. Todd spoke to us about kind of how that worked, where Harvest plays a role, where we can do loans and others can't. But there's also stuff like underwriting credit where you kind of just have to, take the time to learn it, and I think something that Chris said before, we started shooting was that's what separates a good and great BDO is learning those details. So when you're going on a deal, you learn something and then you have to, go through that 8-week process with Shatterbox, and it kind of beats down on the same thing that you realize that you really need to get better at. It's almost like a muscle memory, right? So then these modules kind of stick in your head as, oh, this isn't the first time I've seen this. So it's a little bit easier to remember it and learn it when it's not so raw to you.
that's a great point. Like, is that kind of like the training programs back in the day, but like this is like a new age version of them? Like,
It's more in depth. Like I said before, we just don't have the resources and the time to devote to a full program. When I was a sales manager back at CIT, I came out of being a BDO and I said, I know how not to do it because that's what I was dropped into. I was dropped into a mess, good luck. Hope you can figure it out, So I didn't want to take that up because I was compensated on what my team did. I want to make sure my team was successful. So I created a 90-day program. I mean, complete with a notebook and, it was all, it was hard copy. It was electronic behind it, test cases, talk to this person. This is back in the district offices. We had a lot of people go to the district office, make sure you're going through these things. So the first 30 days, they were doing things that I had set up every week. They're boom, boom, boom. Then I would bring them in after 30 days and say, okay, now you actually know something. You can ask intelligent questions. When I tell you something, you're not going to be freaked out. Well, I can't keep doing that. I don't have the time to do that now, and that was only for sales,
Right.
So that's just one part of it.
so who'd you hire for, by the way? What position with the Shatterbox?
This person, we don't know where this person's going to end up. Right now, they're a portfolio manager.
Oh, okay.
So we put them in portfolio because at that point, you're touching customers, they're already brought to you. You're not having to go out and find the customers. They're there. You're touching financials. You're hearing the stories. You're ordering appraisals and vendor reports from time to time. So it seemed a good place to take somebody and say, okay, let's get your feet wet this way.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, I think credit would be the next step. You need to know credit.
Yeah.
You're going to be a good BDO, man. You need to understand credit, where to spend your time,
Absolutely.
not to make your internal partners mad at you for
Yeah.
sending up bad deals.
Yeah.
And so forth.
Exactly.
Yeah, because your internal reputation is just as important as your external reputation.
100%.
So, but I don't know where this person ultimately will end up. I mean,
Right.
everybody says they want to be a salesperson, and maybe he will be a salesperson,
So what's your overarching strategy around leveraging Shatterbox platform for this sort of hire and training?
So the good thing about Shatterbox is it gives them a basis on SBA, it gives them the foundation. It doesn't tell them how to do SBA. That's our job. Because my bank does SBA differently than Harvest does SBA. Everybody does it, but it gives them enough background so I could say, okay, I understand this module, what you're learning right now. Here's how we apply it here.
Mhm.
Here's how, no, we're not going to worry about that. We're not going to pay attention to this. That's not us.
Yeah.
We're going to spend our time over here. So it's just good enough background so we can take it now and tweak it and put it to what we want it to be. So, I mean, ultimately this person, is our guinea pig, the first person in the program. He's a smart individual. He's taken to it. He's challenged you guys on a couple things and he's impressed me when he's done that. And but it's also been intensive. The credit thing is not easy. Wait till you get to the test at the end.
Yeah, I know. I have it next week. So I would say on that point, another area of Shatterbox that kind of I think is overlooked is the companionship, right? You're doing this with, as the business continues to scale and grow, you're doing this with 7 or 8 other people, and I've been able to build friendships with people in the program to say, hey, we're not the only one in this, right? You might be at a totally different bank, but if I make a mistake and I share it with you, you might not have to go make that same mistake, right? So I think that, meeting other people is also huge because, like you said, there's not much new blood. So when you do find that new blood, you want to get to know them, you want to get to meet them, you want to get to share your experience. So something that I did wrong, my friend sitting across from me doesn't have to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And just to go back to answer your question, so I'm the mentor, and I guess it's good that I'm the mentor because I'm over the entire division, over the whole business unit. So when it was time for the credit shop, I brought in my credit manager to help out. When it's time for closing, my closing manager is going to help out. So I can bring in the resources, I can pull them in, so I can direct it. So I think the mentor is important. I didn't think about that before. I just did it because, all right, nobody else has time. I'm going to do it. Make sure it happens.
And what happens is now, and we've set those conversations up. There's a hard stop conversation every other week, and Chris will get an email from us the first part of that week, and it has, here's your discussion guide for the week. It's a PDF. He doesn't have to think about it. He just has to set aside the time to sit down. My learner has gone through this and is already prepared to answer these questions, have this conversation. And those are generally, this is the information you learned. How do we contextualize it in the shop where I work? Right.
Yep.
And that's where it really they begin to get entrenched in how we do it here. And it's a blank tablet when you step into the program with no SBA experience. So I'm going to learn it the way my shop does it. And you don't have to reteach in that circumstance. And I think, Cam, I appreciate that you brought out, from the beginning, one of our premises was this is a really special industry. And the relationships are what makes it special. It's one of the kind of friendliest competitive industries that I could imagine, right? And so what makes this conference great, no offense, GLQC organizing committee, is not the breakout sessions. It's helpful, but what makes it great is what happens after everything shuts down and people are learning from each other. And that's always been the case in the 24 years I've been bouncing around this industry. And so we want to provide that kind of community for our learners. And so when you graduate with a class of Shatterbox people, when you see these shoes, you're going to get these when you graduate, at a conference and people have their there's a community that we're building of people that are going to take those relationships forward. And that is also what makes you better at your job. It's not just having technical knowledge. It's having somebody I can ping and go, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Have you seen this?
Yep.
And I think that's critical.
Yeah, it is. It's helped me a lot for sure. It makes you feel like you're not the only one, right? Who has a dumb question or a rough experience or a bad week, right? And you can bounce those ideas off, and grow from it rather than just feel like it's only you and all you.
So what's your approach been to, as you're going out and helping BDOs package up their deals and run spreads and learning all this at the same time and going out and looking for new deals? What's the approach been?
I would say, at first it was definitely a lot. It's still a lot, but I've learned how to manage it now. I think the main thing I've been taking away from being around these BDOs is every person does it differently, right? We were speaking about that. You can be the most introverted person and produce 100 million, right? But you can also be the loudest guy in the room and be a really high producer too. So I think seeing what makes each person special on my team at Harvest and everybody at Harvest that I've been able to, communicate with and being like, okay, I like that. I think, I can use my traits in a way to work with that and complement it, and I like how she or he conducted this specific conversation and I'm going to implement it, but I'm going to put my own twist on it, right? So then I use that to source my own deals. And I've seen, you play around with it, right? It's trial and error. So, being myself, but also, using the strategies when I have to be communicative with the borrower or with the broker. And so I would say it's almost like it has to happen all at once because I want to see what my BDOs are doing on our team that are killing it, implement those concepts and strategies into my own traits where I have an advantage on others, and then source my own deals, right? And so I think that it's great that it happens at once because yes, it's a lot. Yes, it's managing multiple different things, but also I think that's the only way to do it, because you're learning hands-on, right? I'm seeing what people on my team are doing that are successful, using those strategies, bringing them into my own, seeing what I can do to make it a little bit different, and then using them, when it's just me.
So I know when you had the idea for Shatterbox, and I know you co-founded it with 4 other great humans, only until you start talking to the banks, I feel like, do you really understand the market and like what is needed? Like, where are you finding that banks are needing help the most right now?
I think the lowest hanging fruit for a bank, and really for us and talking to folks, are people like Chris, who there's a pent up demand for training because people know we've got to hire new people. A lot of banks have gone and done that, but then they're like, well, I don't know what to do with the person now, right? Or now I'm pulling a very expensive person who's not really a trainer off the line to try and mentor them, sort of maybe against their will, right? And so there's a lot of these people that need to know more about the job they've been hired to do and get better at it faster. And so there's no training anywhere in our industry that's intended for brand new people. And so I think that's the easiest way for a bank to say, we need this, it makes sense, and we're going to put either someone we just hired into the platform to learn, or we're going to hire somebody because now we know there's a resource to do that. And so that's where we're getting the most traction. And it's just there's less friction, and people kind of understand that better. I think as we deal with that backlog of people that need that kind of learning, folks are going to kind of go, okay, this system works, and we want to very intentionally go and recruit new people to put into the platform, as opposed to just kind of dealing with the ones that we already kind of have. And maybe they're they learn for 2 weeks, and then there's a 2-week gap because it's quarter end and nobody has any attention or time to give to them. And so they're just kind of twiddling their thumbs.
Well, it's hard when you're kind of trying to be a disruptor in the industry, because we come to these conferences and, there's a lot of banks and they all kind of run this similar playbook. We're going to hire BDOs. We're going to get underwriters. We're going to do closers. And then there's the vendors that are providing the services that they think they need. You're kind of coming at it saying, no, you actually don't need to do that. You need to do this thing that I invented over here.
It's the problem when you do something novel, is trying to articulate exactly what it is. Like the fact that our learning is asynchronous. That's a fun word. It's a word for the day. It means that there's not a classroom or a webinar at a particular time that I have to be available for to learn this thing, right?
Self-paced.
It means self-paced. It means I get a login and I can do my 4 to 5 hours of learning at any point in time during this week that I have available.
That's helped me a lot.
Always available to me.
Yeah, there's some weeks where I'll do it Sunday right when it opens, 5 to 10 p.m., and that's when I have time. There's other weeks I'll wait till Friday in the afternoon, and then I'll have to do it.
You're not
so.
doing it Friday afternoon.
It's happened a couple of times, but when I get the email from Mark, I'm like,
come on.
So,
You're not helping us out. But we had an investor in the company, like one of our angel investors, like you also as a company. But this is someone who put their own money, wrote a check to help capitalize our startup costs. And they run an SBA department. And we put this SOP update course out, which was service to the industry. It's a 4-hour, update on a lot of the major changes in the SOP, free. Everybody can use that. It's still available. And this person emailed me and said, I'm going to be skiing, in Vail on Friday. And so I'm not going to be available for the course. And I'm like, you put money into my company and you don't know how the platform works. So we are explaining it again and again and again. And that's one of the things you just don't account for when you have the idea. You're like, everybody's going to understand what it is we're doing. And they're not. Like, we just have to continue to articulate it and find better, more precise ways to tell people what it is and how it works. And so that's the biggest hurdle we've had to get over.
It's also evolving.
Relearning. Yeah.
It's also evolving a little bit. So sometimes I'll talk to you and you're like, no, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah. A lot of micro pivots too. When you're building, it's like, what works? What do people respond to? What do they really need?
Exactly.
And so our sales process is not anymore us just going, here's the wonderful, beautiful thing we've built. You should buy it. Here's what it costs. It's help me understand your program, your goals, your talent strategy. Do you have a growth mandate? And once we understand all those things, now I can say, here's how our platform works, and here's how I think it can work for you. Now we're building a statement of work that aligns with a lender's goals. And over time, yeah, there's certain things that are needed more than others. And so then you have a way that the product is packaged more consistently. But it's been very fluid.
Well, it's like a software platform. I mean, you're constantly tweaking it, constantly improving it, rolling out new additions, et cetera. So you should learn, okay, this didn't work, or this could work better this way. We're going to move this around here. The feedback we're getting from the students now is such that we should do this. You know?
And we take those and we implement. We've stretched some of the learning out. We've killed other parts of it, that just weren't useful.
Sure.
Right. The idea that you have is always different than how you're going to be delivering it a year and a half later. But the thing that I'm proud that we've done is we've learned from every dollar of revenue we brought into the company. Like, it's not revenue for revenue's sake. It's how do we learn what we need to learn to make the platform work better? Because there's a massive problem in the industry that everybody agrees on. We want to fix it. Mm-hmm. We're going to fix it if the platform is as effective as it can possibly be, right? And so it's just startups are a grind, and still grinding through it. And I'm sure it's going to look really different in another 18 months than it looks now, but it'll be better. It'll be better.
Has there been anything that's surprised you since you've gone down this journey? What surprised you the most?
Yeah, I think I might get in political trouble for answering that question too directly. I've been surprised that people in this industry who love this business have pushed back because change scares them for some reason, or because they think that we're a threat to the way things have been in the past. And everything the way that's been in the past isn't the way it should keep being in the future, right? Or they think we're competing with the trade group, which we're not. Like, two of our founders worked for Nagel, and we're doing something that fills a gap that Nagel really can't get involved in the hiring process with a lender. So like, these kind of weird vibes from people that just kind of want to do things an old way, just for the sake of it, and haven't gone to the couple of learning what it is we're trying to do. That's been disappointing. That's been pretty surprising.
You didn't expect resistance from disrupting an industry?
Well, I didn't expect it from the places that's come from. I'll say that. Or I didn't expect it in kind of the way it's happened. And those are things we're clearing up, and we can communicate a little more precisely to the market what we're doing. But there's something that's broken. Otherwise, nobody would be buying Shatterbox if it worked the way that people are doing it now.
I mean, you wouldn't have started a whole company just because, we need another one of these. Like,
it's not, and I love all of our business valuation companies and construction management companies and life insurance companies, right? And so, but there's a way to do that. And some people are a little better at this part than the other, but nobody's doing this thing because it's friggin' hard. When we started this, we have 75 subject matter experts, and you're one of them. Who've helped us create content, audit content, record videos, etc. And we had this 4-page non-compete agreement for them to sign. When we first thought, well, we don't want any of them to create one of these things and compete with us. Man, if one of them
good luck.
I hope you got $1.5 million liquid and the ability to create connections with dozens of it's been so much of a heavier lift than we ever imagined it would be. That surprised me too. Like, it's in reality, it's a lot more work than it was in concept.
I mean, yeah, we're scaling to $1 billion though, still, right?
That's right. Yeah, we're gonna IPO for $1 billion in 2 years. Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah.
Chris, what about taking a step back? In the market today, because I'm seeing shops fall by the wayside. To be honest, what's going on?
We seem to go through cycles in our industry. I mean, this happens. There's I don't want to say it's a natural cleansing or anything, but it's nothing new. I was talking to somebody earlier today. As much as I've been going to these types of conferences, Nagel conferences, every time you go to a Nagel conference, they have the government session, and it's doom and gloom. The sky's always falling every year. Here's the problem. And if I look around the room for first-time people coming here. I'm like, how you feeling? But we've been doing it forever, and it's you take it with a grain of salt now. So this industry is constantly churning. Some banking in general, and you have mergers and acquisitions. So that right there is going to cause people to get out of this industry. Their bank's going to buy another bank that has SBA, and they're going to say, we don't like SBA. I had a bad adventure in it, and I'm not going to do it again. So when you find out about them, it's unsettling. Oh my God, they just laid off 20% of their entire staff. Holy crap, what's going on? But again, I've been doing this 30 odd years, been there before. You see it happen, and sometimes it is the SBA division itself that's a problem. Sometimes just the bank saying, nope, we're just going in a different direction. We don't like this direction anymore.
And there's these seasons too. Like banks are either really interested in originating assets, loans, et cetera, or they're really interested in gathering deposits. And with rates doing what they did, and like liquidity and banks being the issue that it was, it's kind of a really unique moment in time. About every 10 or 12 years, we have a big event that causes a lot of shuffle.
I agree. And I think what I enjoy about being where I am at Dogwood is, if you're an SBA lender, you want to know, why is that bank an SBA lending? What's your purpose? Why do you want to do this? And if they don't, they just say, well, we feel like we need to. I'd be wary of that, because there's not much sticking power there at that time. I know what I'm here to do at Dogwood. We are a two-headed monster. We do conventional commercial lending and we do SBA lending. My job was to get the rocket fuel, to get the bank to the next level so they could go out and hire people, those people who are the relationship managers that build the book of business and get the deposits, and that interest income eventually builds. I was the fee income up front to be able to pay for that. And I love it. I love it. I know my purpose, and I will always have a purpose at this bank. And I appreciate my CEO, my boss, telling me that, and I can pass that story along. It's not for everyone. People are like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that. I want to be the long-term portfolio. We don't want to sell our loans. That's great, Or you're at a bank that doesn't have a dedicated division. You just do SBA along with other things. That's fine. I don't agree with that. That's not my speed. I want to focus on it.
How can you do that? I just sat in the writing policies and procedures thing this morning.
I don't know. That's why I said you probably won't do it well. When I'm interviewing people, I tell them, man, this is all we do. You have to focus on it.
Yeah.
Cheryl Stockton's talking about assembling a task force to write, do what you do policies. But yesterday I interviewed someone it's them, an assistant and a closer. Like, who's doing all that?
That's a difficult endeavor.
Do you have, to build a sustainable shop, like, do you feel like you have a North Star or like a pillar of success that, has kept you guys kind of on the right track?
Well, it's a personal thing. You want to treat people with respect. We call ourselves family. We spend more time with our work family than we do our real family. We call ourselves the island of misfit toys. We're a little bit nutty. Nobody really understands what we do, and we kind of like it that way. They're like, well, you SBA guys, man, I don't understand it. We're like, that's fine. Just they'll let us do it. Just let us do it. Don't get in the way. So I like to think, our bank's culture it sounds hokey, but it's love and respect. But that's how I treat my team. Nobody disparages my team. I will protect my team at all costs. If there's a borrower who's unhappy and is starting to get belligerent, I'll cut him off. I'll pick up the phone and be like, I'm sorry, we won't talk to you like this. You can't talk to my people like that. Same thing with referral sources. If we have BDOs that are running too hot, it's not a good fit. So I think it's treating our people with love and respect. That's always been, my guiding principle, and it's worked. And it seems simple. It seems like everybody should do that, right? I've been doing this a long time. I see a lot of people who don't do it that way, who don't treat people well, who do things that I don't think are right, and it'll eventually bite them. So it's like I said, kind of hokey, and it's not a gimmicky thing.
Yeah, well, it's important, and I'm sure you, with a recruiting background, probably got a lot of calls from people about the culture within the shops.
It's rarely money that drives a move just by itself. It's a feeling that I'm not being listened to. I don't have any input. I'm not being respected. There's an intellectual compensation or an emotional compensation problem. It's generally not just a financial compensation when the phone's ringing. So, so yeah, that's very consistent in my 15, 16 years in the recruiting business in this space. But the kind of cultures like this are the kind that you can call into that shop, a dozen times and people are like, nah, I'm good. If you're fairly paid and you're respected in your shop and you feel like there's stability in terms of my job security, like, you're going to retain those people.
It's tough. You want to be proactive with your people. They get called all the time. There's not a lot of SBA talent out here, hence why there's Shatterbox. So my people are getting called all the time. I know it. I hate being reactive. If they come to me, man, I just got offered this and it's $20,000 more than they're making right now. And I kick myself. I'm like, son of a gun. I don't have another comp survey. We haven't done one in a while. I didn't realize it had gone this far, and inevitably I want to save that person, but I would rather be proactive and bring it to them and be like, hey, you're doing such a great job. We're going to bump it here. We're going to take it here. But it's tough when you're running a business to do that.
And that could be part of why some of these shops are closing down. Because when the premiums are coming down and the pay's going up, you're getting squeezed to a certain extent. So I don't know.
At some point, a bank is going to say the juice ain't worth the squeeze, right. And so we're going to.
You make a really good point. I mean, my whole thing is I always want my interest income and my servicing fee income to be able to pay for the entire business unit. Mm-hmm. That way, premium fee income when you're selling is gravy. And if premiums go down, you're not making as much. You're still making money. You're just not making as much.
Oh, that's amazing. You could do that?
Yeah. I mean, I learned that the hard way. I was at a lender before that sold everything except the 5% you have to hold on to by law. They sold the unguaranteed portion. And then when the market crashed in 2008 and you couldn't sell paper anymore, they looked at me and I had 150 people in my staff and they're like, well, your interest income, no longer supports your expense structure. And I'm like, well, whose fault is that? Yeah, I sold everything that wasn't nailed down. But I learned from that.
I talked to a bank the other day that wanted to do it the opposite way. Like the premium income is what they were counting on to cover the expenses.
Well, what can happen in markets. Premiums go down. I'm not going to say there's one right way to do this. It's the way I want to do it. So I know I'm protected because I got burned before.
Yeah. You just got to build up a portfolio.
You've got to build that portfolio up. We ran extremely lean. In 2021 with the stimulus, I had 20 people on my team, and we were a top 30 lender in the nation. It was only 20 people.
We were right there with you, but we had 40 people.
Right. I mean, right. And my boss is always like, why do you need more people? I'm like, because they're about to drop dead right now because we're working them so hard, So now we have gotten to the point where, Dogwood is almost 5 years old. We'll be 5 years old in May. And we finally gotten to the structure that's sustainable. But it took a while to get there. We had to build up that portfolio. I couldn't have everything I wanted at first. We just couldn't put that much expense in front of revenue.
Maybe that'll be the title of the show. So I know you said you're in sales, Cam, but you know what? You're doing the underwriting course now. Mm-hmm. Do you want to be a BDO? Do you want to be an underwriter? Maybe a closer?
I think I want to be a BDO. I've liked it enough so far. To the point where, I think I'm excited to see what the next few years looks like. And I feel like it deserves at least, from what I've heard other people, it takes, back in the day, 3-5 years of, not much action to really figure out if it's for you. And I think that with technology and everything, I can figure that out a lot faster. But I really like the BDO position, for personal reasons, obviously, being able to impact people like my family was impacted, being able to help people out, in a tough financial position, or people who look like me, people who have similar values as me. I think that's a super impactful position. And having those values be the reason that you're doing it helps you through the rough times, I think. Through the rough days and weeks when you're questioning, you're looking yourself in the mirror. I think everyone's probably had times where they look themselves in the mirror. And I think having those values supporting you in those times helps you get through them rather than having a dollar dictate your motivation.
I'm glad you said that because your boss wants you to be BDO too.
Yeah.
And so good answer. We evaluate on the front end and a really kind of, there's behavioral analytics and multiple interviews. Like by the time somebody is going into the program that we've recruited, like they're going into a specific role with a specific kind of makeup. Mm-hmm. That makes them more likely to be successful in that role. So if Harvest had said, we want to put an analyst in the program, we would have gone and looked for somebody that wasn't Cam. It would have been a different, kind of person. But anyway.
Well, it's going to be fun to watch this back in 5 years and see what actually happened.
Yes.
But do you have any, we're going to wrap things up. So do you have any final words or?
Every bank in this industry should use Shatterbox starting tomorrow.
Wow. I'm humble too, huh?
Yeah, I'm not saying that because I'm awesome. I'm saying because it's a massive need. Maybe not every bank, just half the banks. No, I think that we love this industry. I've kind of been an SBA fanatic. When you get into it, you kind of are in it, you know.
Can you blow it?
And but the industry is in trouble if it doesn't solve this problem. And so I'm really passionate about helping banks figure out how to address this for themselves. And it's not going to be the fix for everybody, but I think it's going to make a lot of impact in the industry, which then is going to have impact on all these small businesses. We're in the process of getting an SBA loan to kind of finish our build right now. You know, I've been a business owner for, you know, nearly 20 years now. And I know the impact this program has. And so I want it to continue to be able to have that impact. And this is, you know, the way that we're trying to influence that moving forward. So, yeah.
All right, you heard them. Get it. Shatterbox.io. Is that the website?
That's right.
Okay.
I'd say if there's anybody in my shoes who stumbles upon this, you know, and it's kind of on the fence, I think it's worth a shot. That's what I would say. You know, it's worth a shot. You know, it's proven now, so it's not as risky as if you were starting in October, and it makes sense. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, and you've, as someone who's been to the BDO retreat, I mean, you can
Honored.
speak firsthand.
Yes.
It's definitely, we have a lot of fun.
For sure.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's my goal. I told Ray I have it on a whiteboard. I'm making it to Scottsdale next year. So.
Okay, well, I guess we just announced the location for
Oh,
the BDO retreat. Next year, 2025, Scottsdale. Okay.
That's funny.
All right, that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and Shatterbox to the moon.
All right, that's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode of The Art of SBA Lending. And if you have any feedback or suggestions, email me at ray@artofsba.com. Until next time, ta-ta.